Hi, I'm Rutledge.
Hey, I'm Connor.
And we're Friends Stream Sports. We're friends who stream sports, who get together. And Connor, thank God I finally figured out what day it is. And it's my favorite day. It is Monday, because we're going to play a little Monday Night Football. And I'm rocking the creamsicles tonight as we get into this Bucs-Giants game.
Oh, yeah, Monday Night Football. Let's do it. Can't wait.
Boot it
Giants,
up.
Bucks. I'm going throwback jerseys and throwback helmets as well. Rutledge, we got a big show tonight. We're doing State of the Shield. We're doing college football. We're doing rookie quarterbacks. You know, we're about midway through this NFL season. So we're going to be talking about teams that could be playing their way out and playing their way in. We're going to talk about the Big Ten. We're talking about just a whole variety of things that I'm really, really excited about. But, you know, what do you think about tonight?
I am really excited. I had so much fun on our Super Bowl episode last week. So to everyone watching and listening to us, we did an episode about should Orlando host a Super Bowl. You can find that on our YouTube channel, Friends Stream Sports. You can also find it on your podcast platform. So make sure to subscribe and follow us and get behind us. But I am just excited to get back to sort of basics with State of the Shield. And let's kind of talk about these rookie quarterbacks. You know, I feel like 9 weeks in, you really learn who was worth something and who was not something. So how do you want to kind of talk about these guys, Connor?
Well, you know, we've got three rookie quarterbacks that are really worth noting and talking about. We got Joe Burrow, we got good old Tua, and we have Justin Herbert. So I think what we need to do, Rutledge, is just kind of go one by one, maybe give our takes a little bit on each of these guys, maybe give them a grade. But the grade isn't, who we would pick for a franchise going forward, this, that, or the other. I think it's as simple as how have they been doing so far with where the expectations are, what's going on with them. So without further ado, what have you been thinking about Joe Burrow so far?
I think overall with Joe Burrow, I've always been a little hesitant on the number one overall draft pick for the QB, and I think really Sam Bradford ruined it for me in the sense that for early Rutledge pick to start the game as normal. By the way, I just want to kind of share that I'm currently a little undefeated here on Friends Stream Sports and Madden. I think. Have you won yet, Connor?
You are currently undefeated at Madden.
At Madden, at 2K, which I gloated about in our pre-show meetings. I am horrible. But I digress. Joe Burrow, I think he's really sort of evolving and getting into the game. I think it's the no preseason's really kind of hurting him. However, with Burrow, what I think is that he needs help, right? He's trying to do it all, and oh no, gave it right back to you.
Another pick.
And Joe Burrow doesn't have the help. His offensive line is bad. A.J. Green is not a stud receiver anymore. So, needs some help. I give him like a B in the sense that there's potential, but he doesn't have a team around him to be successful. So he's kind of like when Colt McCoy went to the Browns, or even when Brady Quinn went to the Browns. You put these good college quarterbacks that Burrow's way better than both of them on these bad teams, and it's not fair to them. They can't do what they need to do. So I'm giving them a B for be better later, but the Bengals office has got to do some work. What do you think of Burrow?
B for Bengals should continue to draft good players to put around Joe Burrow, right? I think he's definitely come out and surprised folks. I think that there were some folks at the very beginning when he got drafted that kind of scratched their head a little bit and said, Joe Burrow? I think you are thinking about drafting. I think you misfired and we're going for the other quarterback in the SEC. So far he's been showing good improvement week over week. I think, he's 67% completion percentage, 11 touchdowns, 5 picks so far. I mean, that's pretty good. That's not, top 5, quarterback. But Joe Burrow isn't asked right now to be a top 5 quarterback. Joe Burrow is asked to really come in and perform well, not get shaken, not get rattled, and, do what he needs to do. And I think that he has done that. I think he has done that without a lot of really good players around him, as you've mentioned. You know, his best weapons are Tyler Boyd, AJ Green, and Joe Mixon. And I mean that's not going to get it done. So with that, I think that Joe Burrow has started out really well. I think the win last week against Tennessee really showed his moxie and really showed his poise. So I'm going to give Joe Burrow an A because he is starting out. He's starting out pretty solid without a pretty solid supporting cast. So that's what I think about Burrow. But now let's roll over to Tua. What do you think about Tua, Rutledge?
Before we get into Tua, I want to give a shout out to our viewer Veneros, which is our good buddy Steven Kicklighter, who first of all mentions that I am only undefeated against you, Connor, in football, but he gives Burrow a B+ and says that there is Steven's take tonight is they're still riding the Burrow hype train, but you're right, indicating me. They're going to have to build the team around him. So he's right in the middle where we are. So Steven, if you're out there, we want to hear your grades. We're doing Burrow, we're doing Justin Herbert, and we're doing Tua. So Tua, I didn't get to watch the Dolphins game, but I watched it, and Colin Cowherd did a very kind of aggressive take on how Tua's not the best, but I will kind of take my take off of the last Tua we got, which was not him going in against Kirby Smart's team, which Tua's claim to fame was all it was is Nick Saban in the championship game, switch quarterbacks, and you went to this kid who can throw bombs, to which Jalen Hurts could not. So Tua all of a sudden just brought a long passing game to a Georgia team that hadn't game plan and a coaching staff that couldn't adjust against Nick Saban's staff. Tua in the regular season in college didn't really show a lot of moxie and a lot of go. Sure, he put up like 93 passing yards. They did okay. It was his first game. They're going to sort of watch that hip because they're a big investment. But I'm going to give him a C. The sense of that, my C stands for see what happens. Because Tua doesn't have, we don't have the film yet to properly grade Tua. I can't fail him. You know, he's done a decent amount as a quarterback, but I don't think he very much compares to the other two guys on our group. What do you think of Tua?
I think that Tua, he started out pretty, okay for what they wanted him to do. The big thing and the big news about Tua that came out after this game was that the reason why the Dolphins went with Tua actually had to deal with the fact that they have the Houston Texans first-round pick, which could be a really high pick with some other really good quarterbacks. So the Dolphins really need to understand what they have in Tua. So really critical, not just for Tua, but for the franchise, to see what they had to get there with Tua. I think that the 93 passing yards, okay, that's not, with one game under his belt, you got to really go a little bit more qualitative than quantitative. He did have a really nice touchdown pass. I think he could, although Tua doesn't play defense, I think that he could be the quarterback to get him, to really inspire the rest of the team. The Dolphins were a team that played hard, but we're always missing a little something under Fitzpatrick. I think Tua could be that player to put him over the top. With that, I give Tua a B for be patient. We need a little bit more film, but I think he's going to be A-okay with the Dolphins. So finally, do we have any other takes from our listeners?
Steven quickly said that gave a really good stats. Tua was 12 for 22, which is really rough on your first. They needed that big hit. Tua was 12 for 22 for 93 yards and 1 touchdown in his game. So, that completion percentage makes you kind of worried, especially against the Rams, which I'm going to talk about the Rams later tonight and my take on the Rams. Steven gave him a D, so that's a little bit aggressive. Now let's get to our last one.
Justin Herbert. Let's do a quick Justin Herbert take.
Quick Justin Herbert take as we're already in the second quarter. Justin Herbert, I give him like an A. I'm giving Justin Herbert an A for potential. He is airing it out. He is throwing it. We've talked before that Chargers are hurt. They're kind of adjusting to some talent, but for who he has, and the Chargers franchise has never had massive names, I really feel good about where Justin Herbert is and where he could go, as long as they get some people around him. Give me Justin Herbert, Connor.
Justin Herbert, quick Justin Herbert take. Pretty similar, just with completion percentage and touchdown passes to Joe Burrow. 67.4%. 15 touchdowns, 5 picks. I think Justin Herbert has better weapons, but I think that I think he's started out really well, and he's in a pretty good division. Not pretty good. He's in a really good division. Pardon me, but I do give him an A minus. I would give Burrow a little bit of the edge, just because I think with what we've seen so far, although Herbert has played very admirably, he has better players to throw to, so it stands to reason that he would play a little better. So Justin Herbert with the A minus. I think the future's looking real bright for all three of those quarterbacks.
There we go. So let's get into our second quarter, which our second quarter topic this week is we're talking about, as we're halfway through the season, who we think is going to make their way into the playoffs and who we think is going to make their way out of the playoff contention. So Connor, in the AFC, who do you have going in and why?
In the AFC, I've got the I keep on saying Oakland, the Raiders, formerly from Oakland, now from Las Vegas. Currently, they're sitting in the number 8 position. Let's remember, top 7 make it in. I think as this year progresses, there is a home field advantage that Las Vegas will have, and that will be the Vegas flu. If you're unsure what the Vegas flu is, maybe look up what the South Beach flu is or the LA flu. That I think is a real, oh my goodness, user stiff arm. OJ Howard.
Boom.
Wow.
Dance for me. Oh, man.
Dance for me. I think that the Las Vegas flu will be a home field advantage. I think that the Raiders have already played the Chiefs once and won. I think they're looking at the rest of their schedule. I think it's pretty favorable to them. With that second to last week against the Dolphins, I think could have some real serious playoff contention if the Dolphins keep playing well. But I think that they're playing some bad teams, the Jets and the Falcons, record-wise bad teams. They're playing some rookie quarterbacks. They've got the Chargers twice and the Dolphins left. And I think that a coach like John Gruden can take advantage of bad teams, rookie quarterbacks, and really give Las Vegas a chance to sneak into the playoffs. And I think they're going to do it this year. So that's my take. What's your take, Rutledge?
I'm taking the Dolphins, even though I'm kind of like iffy on the Tua situation, and I agree with you. The Dolphins are doing what the Jags are doing with starting their rookie quarterback this year. We're seeing what we got, but the Dolphins' schedule really plays off in their favor. Dolphins have the Chargers, the Broncos, the Jets, the Bengals. They have to play the Chiefs, but they also play the Pats, which is more winnable. They play the Raiders, they play the Buffalo, and they play Arizona. That's a very run-the-table-yourself schedule. Besides that, and the AFC in the wild card spots, I feel like is very up for grabs this year. I think the Dominican Sue's going to step on you on Thanksgiving. I think the Dolphins very much have potential to make moves if they can get some help with people losing, but I think they can finally get themselves back in the playoffs. Do they get out of the first round? I don't think so, but I think Dolphins. NFC. That wasn't the question. NFC, I'm going to take the Detroit Lions. Same thing. Detroit Lions have, and I'll pull it in a second, Detroit Lions have a very doable schedule, and their division is starting to look a little bit more wide open. I'm not talking about Green Bay, although Connor's hoping Green Bay falls apart here at the end. But they don't have anyone too crazy. The Bears are starting to look kind of weak. They have a couple easier teams on there. Man, there's just holes in this defense. They have a couple easier teams. They're only third in the NFC. They play Houston coming up. They have to play the Bucks, but they've had the Vikings twice. They have Carolina. They have Washington. So same thing. To me, at this point in the season, we know who you are, so we kind of start to look at schedule. Who is your NFC on the way in?
NFC on the way in. I'll take a very similar. I'm going to stay in the same division, just different team. Danny Dimes dropping it. Chicago Bears. We know Matt Nagy can coach. The fact that we know he's a good coach. We know how important having a good coach is. He can even get Mitch Trubisky in the playoffs. I think that the Packers are starting to look a little shaky as we head here into the 2-minute warning. The Packers are getting exposed yet again as a team that can get pushed around, and as it gets colder, right? And I think the Packers could stumble. I think the Bears could nip the Packers. The rest of the NFC North isn't looking great, and the Bears have only played the Lions once, and I think that the Bears could really turn this around and make a big impact, and yet again sneak in the playoffs. I'm saying the 8 seed Bears sneaking it in there.
Very cool. Steven very much agrees with our takes on either Raiders or Dolphins going through. But actually, Steven took a hot take here in the comments. He has either Chiefs or Steelers representing the AFC in the Super Bowl. So we look for your NFC take on that, Steven. You're out there watching us. We appreciate the loyal viewers. So let's go into who's going in. Or who's going out. Who is on their way out? Connor, who do you have in the AFC on their way out because they're falling apart?
I'm going the Browns. And I'm going to quote a very inspirational football movie called The Replacements, where they spend a lot of time talking about, that was not a smart play. But I was making a great comment there, so I think it evens out.
There you go.
The idea is, you can get into quicksand. You can push so hard that, no matter what happens, you're always going to be wrong. And I think Baker Mayfield and the Cleveland Browns are starting to run into a little bit of quicksand here. They had that tough game against the Raiders, and little dropsies right there. That's no good. And I think that they're really going to struggle. I think Baker Mayfield's going to keep pressing and pressing and pressing too hard. What made Baker play pretty well was that he had a lot of good players around him, and they didn't ask Baker Mayfield to do too much. And now I think Baker is going to try to just throw the team on his back and really lead them, which I don't think he's good enough. I think Baker Mayfield is the 4th best quarterback in the AFC North, and I think they're going to really struggle, and they're going to find themselves on the outside in here in the playoffs. What about you, Rutledge?
I want to say I disagree with your Baker take. He still tries to play like he's at Oklahoma football, and the NFL is not Oklahoma football. You're not sitting in a division where it's lopsided to where at the time he was in college, just the dominant king. So my team in the AFC, who I think is on their way out, is the Tennessee Titans. Sure, they went undefeated, but they've dropped the last 2, and they've looked different. It just doesn't look... I watched the Titans-Steelers game. Not the one, of course, Steven and I played. I lost that. Thanks. Oh, no! Classic Rutledge not paying attention sack. But as it goes with the Titans, their schedule is they have a lot of decent teams, but it's winnable games, but I see them dropping these easy winnable games. There's something wrong in Tennessee, and you could say, well, it was their break, it was their time, but are we going? I feel like there is definitely something going on with the Titans, and they're falling apart. I think the wheels came off. I know the players tried to practice in parks and stuff, but they just don't look the same as they did before break. So I have the Titans going on the way out. I don't see them doing well, and I think it's going to be a shocker. I think all you're going to see on sports is the collapse of the Tennessee Titans.
Now, before you go on, I will like to say, I know you said you disagreed with me on my Baker take, but I think you and I are actually very similar on the Baker take.
For Baker Mayfield?
Yes, that Baker does not have the best players around him, which I think he benefited from.
Oh, no, I agree with I agree with your Baker take, right?
Yes.
Yeah. No, and I agree. He had talent around him. I think he's not using the talent around him that he has, if I clarify my take there. I think Baker thinks that he can just run around like he did in Norman and throw bombs to players that are just more talented, and the playing field's evened out, so he doesn't know what to do with that.
Yeah, okay, there you go. Well, with
that, but he's on the way down.
Yes, he is. I will share who I think is going out, and in light of the fact that we are getting near our halftime hot takes, I'm going to share. This is a pretty warm take here. I'm going to say that first off, Danny Dimes just dropping it. Oh my goodness, so close. I'm going to say that the New Orleans Saints are going to be on the outside looking in when these playoffs have started.
Why you got to do that?
As what I suspect with Tom Brady, I think Drew Brees' performance will tail off towards the end of the year. Succumb to that quote old man arm. And even though, Saquon, very close. Even though I think that. The cumulative records of the teams are a little softer. I know I mentioned the Falcons earlier with the Raiders, I do think that the Falcons are a little bit better than their record shows, and San Francisco and Philadelphia, 3 teams that are better than their records indicate, all are on the Saints' schedule. And don't forget another game against Tampa Bay. And Michael Thomas is having a really difficult time just finding the field in terms of gameplay. Come on.
All right, Connor, you got 2 seconds, and then I'm going to close us out on this take on this half.
Yes.
So Saints.
So Saints are going to be outside looking in, a lot of problems, and they're just going to be struggling. So
okay. My final is we close up this half, and I'm going to take this kick return, then we'll pause for halftime hot takes like we do every week. I am going to go. I think I can. The Saints struggles I don't want to agree with, but something's going on in NOLA. I'm taking the struggle as the LA Rams. And while Aaron Donald may rank himself 99 on the defensive line, like we've seen over and over again with Houston, just because you have one stud in the defensive line does not mean you get there. I think Jared Goff is starting to show his true colors in that he's truly not an NFL caliber quarterback. I think their offense struggles. They have Jalen Ramsey as a cornerback, but they just can't seem to put the pieces together. I worry Sean McVay was like Doug Peterson in the sense of your stuff is new and different, so people say, hey, we got it, but now you got to figure it out. They're in Seattle's division, which Seattle is ridiculous with DK Metcalf turning into a stud. They have to play Arizona, they have to play the Bucks, they have to play the Seahawks twice. They have a tough out. They even have the 49ers who can put up some points. I don't see them sort of making it. And when you surrender Tua Tagovailoa's first win and you only put up 17 in Miami, even if you could say they traveled, they're gonna really be in for a world of hurting. So I have the LA Rams on the way out. So let's do this kick, and we're gonna go into halftime hot takes. What is halftime hot takes this week, Connor?
Halftime hot takes. So as we do this kick here, and we start our halftime hot takes, the question is if you could go to one college football game this year, and really it's more of a multiple choice question. You could go to either the outdoor cocktail party, Georgia, Florida, or any of the conference championship games, which would you go to and why?
I'm definitely going to go to Georgia, Florida this year. Those two teams have been ranked high. They're both high-talent teams. Clearly one of them is on their way to the SEC championship game, which will be the one to see how close can you hang with Bama in order to get the number 4 seed in the playoff. But I want to go see that game. I want to see that kind of slug out, and then that's where you're going to learn which team is good and which team is not. We'll get into our picks of that later, but I'm going to go to Jacksonville this year. I'm going to see Georgia, Florida. Where are you going, Connor?
I was going to say Georgia, Florida. If I hadn't given up drinking for the rest of the year, I would definitely say send me to the cocktail party. But with that, I'm going to pick a unique game. This is a unique year. I'm going to pick a unique game. I think that there is going to be a conference with potentially a team playing to be the 4th undefeated team in the country against another team who I coached college football with, and that's in the Sun Belt. We've got a chance in the Sun Belt Conference Championship game to see an undefeated Coastal Carolina play the Louisiana Ragin' Cajuns. I think that would be a really fun game. 2020 is a weird year. I think that the fun part about the Big Ten, and I've been to an ACC championship game before. It was pretty fun. Florida State played Virginia Tech, but a little commercialized. I think that it would be a little bit more of a down-home kind of feel to it, and I think that in this crazy year of 2020, I would pick kind of a smaller game to go to, a little bit more family feel of the Sun Belt Conference Championship game.
I like your take on that. I think Steven, our viewer, gives a shout out saying that the Sun Belt is probably one of the best non-Power 5, so one of the Group of 5 conferences, which I'll selfishly claim. It does hurt my Georgia Southern blue and white that you are clearly giving your halftime hot take that Georgia Southern will not play for a Sun Belt Conference championship against Coastal Carolina. So that hurts. Not going to lie. That I have to be an objective sports reporter in this situation, but I feel like Michael Greenberg every time they talk bad about the Jets on First Take for 3 hours.
Big J journalism right there.
I know, the Big J journalism. So as far as we go with that, I agree with you, though. I think the other conference championship games are going to be very one-sided this year. That's why I wouldn't want to go. So I would definitely go to a smaller one. But let's get into our third quarter, talking about our favorite topic of all time, and that is college football. And we are going into week 3 of the Big Ten. So it's Big Ten time, my friend. We spent a lot of time trashing the Big Ten in their ways, but now we got to kind of talk about what are we thinking of them.
I think we should keep trashing the Big Ten.
Okay, well, I'll start with the biggest pile of trash in the Big Ten. Very objective take. They're not going to be one of our sponsors, and that is Michigan. Someone please explain to me the blue and haze of the Michigan Wolverines and why, yet again, as shown last year, as Steven, who's our viewer tonight, said, they were ranked all last year. They lost to Michigan State, which it's this weird media complex that we want Michigan to be good, and I understand that. However, ever since they lost to App State, there's nothing there. So I am infuriated, Connor. I can't even give a solid take. What is your thoughts on Michigan this year?
You know, it's tough, right? And just to echo that, Michigan's in a bad place, I think, because they're 6 years into this Harbaugh era, and they're closer to Penn State and Wisconsin than Ohio State. That's 6 years in. I think part of it is they haven't been able to recruit the players, right? Ohio State has sucked up all the talent in the Big Ten, and I think you couple that with, sort of a identity crisis. Jim Harbaugh came in probably a little bit closer to a Wisconsin style, running the football, ball control, things like that. Now has tried to implement this spread system. As much as they always talk about the quote Michigan man, I think that there's been some real identity crisis, and that they just don't have the players, they don't have the horses. So I think Michigan, unfortunately, although they would probably want to believe that they're better than they are, I think they got to look at themselves in the mirror and say, man, we're closer to a Penn State or a Wisconsin, or even a Michigan State than Ohio State. I would love to echo your notion too, that everyone always wants to give Michigan all this credit, and MSU has actually done really well against Michigan over the past couple years, which is I think credit to all of the sports reporters that want to give Michigan all the credit that they don't deserve.
Absolutely. So let me get your take on this, because even Steven brings up a good point. Michigan is ranked 23 after losing. They're a 1-1 team ranked 23. What do you feel about them being ranked right now?
I think if the Pac-12 were not, I think if the Pac-12 were playing, that Michigan should not be ranked. I think the only reason that is keeping Michigan for being ranked right now is that the Pac-12 has not started playing yet.
Right. You know what? I agree with that. I'm still unobjectively hurt with this. Speaking of rankings, have you seen where Wisconsin is ranked?
Oh yeah.
Wisconsin, if you didn't know, they're 10, Connor. Wisconsin, for all of our podcast viewers and listeners and everyone who isn't watching this live, Wisconsin is number 10 in the nation, which means they sit above Miami, Oklahoma State, and the number 15 ranked Coastal Carolina Chanticleers. So, as that goes, why do you think this Wisconsin team, which had their game against Nebraska canceled, sure, they put up a ton of points in their last game against, who did they play again, Connor? Do you remember?
I
have it right here. They put 45 up against Illinois, which is not a football powerhouse. Do you think they deserve to sit at 10? They know, right? They actually, fun fact, Illinois had one of the first marching bands. So there's your fun plug for the day.
Hey, there you go. I think that, I think that Wisconsin is benefiting from past success. I think Wisconsin usually is a pretty solid top 20 program, right? I think that they've had players in the past, right? Can't totally discredit them for having some of the good players that they've had in the past, but a top 10 program? No way. No way. Not a top 10 program. I think that if Wisconsin gets more positive COVID tests, that messes up another team's season, a team that really matters, I think Wisconsin should automatically be dropped out of the polls for the rest of the year. Because I think that, you could say what you want about the Big Ten's COVID policy, but they seem to make it very clear we do not want anybody getting COVID. And if you get COVID, that is no bueno, just like Saquon Barkley's attempt at catching that pass.
That was no bueno. I think there should be some type of COVID punishment with your test if you can't get that in line. You shouldn't be able to sit there and go to bowl games or get in contention or get ranked or anything that comes with that. Crawling on down the rankings today, there's someone else sitting in the top 25 that I know you want to talk about, Connor. Who are you seeing in the rankings from the Big Ten that you want to kind of chat about today?
Ooh, well, I think that there's been a team who's started out pretty hot, and usually this would be a state reserved during basketball season. And I've got a couple of takes on this state and some of their teams, but the state of Indiana has started out really stinking hot here. Purdue's 2-0, Indiana's 2-0, Notre Dame's obviously undefeated so far. So would love to hear some thoughts about Indiana. I'm gonna put this question like this to you, Rutledge, because Indiana's 2-0 and Penn State is 0-2. So who do you think is going to finish the season with a better record, Indiana or Penn State?
Well, that's the really kind of kicker here. I think Penn State got... Oh, no, you did not. Ha! Oh! What is with all these end zone up in the airs that I almost get on these interceptions?
Danny Dimes is throwing the ball too good, and even his computerized receivers aren't ready for it.
Even his bad passes are decent passes. If only it was this much fun to watch. So, I should have known you were going to run with Saquon there. As it goes, Indiana, if you look at their schedule, they still have to get through the gauntlet of the Big Ten. But I think for them to beat Penn State, plus Penn State to struggle against Ohio State, I think all that taught us was Penn State is not the power that we thought they were. James Franklin does not have it all dialed in yet. Will he get there? I think he still can. Is it this year? No. But the man can recruit and he can build a program. Do I think Indiana has a better record by Penn State? If they do, it's because Penn State loses another close one, and it's by one game. I think they could go either way. But I think that the Hoosiers are definitely building a program. If this keeps up, though, that will mean that the intensity for the rivalry of the Purdue-Indiana game is going to be all types of tense at your house. So I don't even know how you... Connor, you must be sleeping on the couch to give Indiana football some good talk tonight.
Well, here's the thing, though. If you let me finish, and then let me give my Purdue shout-out, you'll see how I'm going to totally redeem myself.
Okay.
I think that as you look at Indiana's record, Indiana's got to play Ohio State. Should be a loss. Indiana's got to play Wisconsin. I know we were just kind of trashing Wisconsin, but I do think that Wisconsin is gonna beat Indiana, and I do think that Purdue wins the bucket and beats Indiana. So Indiana should finish the season 5-3. I think Penn State finishes 6-2, with the only question mark being the game against Michigan. Danny Dimes did not have a good toss there. So I think that Penn State finishes 6-2. I do believe Penn State runs the table, including a win over Michigan. And I think that Indiana loses 3 games to finish 5-3, with Penn State barely beating out Indiana for a better record this year. Any thoughts? Any more thoughts for you about Penn State? Or do you need me to get to my Purdue take?
I really want to hear this Purdue take, because I think it's very rare that a sports show outside of the state of Indiana has a Purdue take on a national platform.
Right.
So what is your Purdue football take, as we have 23 seconds left in the third?
Yeah, shout out to our podcast listeners in Denmark, by the way. We do have some of those. Purdue started out 0-2 after overcoming not having their head coach and their head coach for 1 week and their best player on their roster for the first 2 weeks. They did beat Iowa, who's pretty solid. Illinois is not as solid as Iowa, obviously, but 2-0 with that. I think Purdue is in a really good position moving forward and is going to win the bucket this year against Indiana.
There you go. Did you see that Mike Evans didn't even watch that ball go into his hands at all? He just stared up at the clouds and it fell into his lap.
That's how good Mike Evans is.
That was incredible. Like, fire the cannons.
Fire the cannons because of that catch.
Right. Shout out to our viewers saying that, of course, one team in the Big Ten who gets so much credit and is really bad right now is Iowa. So, another how things change, that once again, Iowa football is down. But not talked about too much. So, sadly, we can't wave to the kids. All right. So, now we're into our fourth quarter. And we want to take a second to hope. And we hope that Trevor Lawrence gets better. But we're going to kind of talk about your football team here for a second. So, we hope you're watching as you recover from COVID-19. So, the Clemson Tigers, they play... No, let go of me. The Clemson Tigers, they play Notre Dame this weekend. As with the ACC's COVID protocol, Trevor Lawrence cannot come out and play. So, as that goes, Connor, if Notre Dame loses, and they look like it very much could because their their backup quarterback is not ready to go, do they get a pass with everything that's gone on? And do we lightly drop them down the rankings if they lose to Notre Dame? What do you think?
Well, let's define pass. Would be, in my definition of pass, it would be if should Notre Dame beat Purdue, should Notre Dame beat Clemson, should Clemson remain in the top four? Mm-hmm. And I do believe, and we're going to get to our picks later on Notre Dame versus Clemson. I think that Clemson only flips slightly to number 4 per se if it's a close loss. If Notre Dame comes out and really hands it to Clemson, which Clemson didn't look all that great this weekend. They had to really eke out a win against Boston College. So definitely not the most crazy thing to think about would be if Notre Dame would win a close game or beat Clemson by a lot. I think if it's a close loss, even if it's a 17-14 kind of game or it's a 35-31 kind of game, I think that Clemson should still be in the top 4, not just because they don't have Trevor Lawrence, but because you got to remember also that Clemson will probably play Notre Dame again for the ACC title.
I'm going to say no. Wow, there's 3 different people that tried to catch that pass, and luckily we got it. That was very Madden that 2 guys tried to catch it at once, and the 3rd guy gets it. I'm going to say no, and I'm going to say it in a way of like, you have to play by the same rules as everyone else. I've been very on Clemson. They're just running the table. Sure, they beat a bad Georgia Tech team, but Clemson, if they lose, I think they should fall to at least 5 because you're going to have Georgia hopefully beat Florida. That's my take on that. You also have Cincinnati, which is undefeated at 6. I don't think Clemson should be given the kind of go away just so that this ungroup of 5 who's trying to make this first run in the playoffs to prove for the little guy has to sit there and suffer. I think they should fall to 6 or 7 and definitely down there, even if Notre Dame beats them close. Dabo Swinney has been known to say that they're too deep all the time. Well, show us how deep you really are. You're number 1, because if they don't put it together and you can't throw your dude in and make it happen, what are you going to do next year when Trevor Lawrence is in the NFL if he goes? And the right team has the number 1 pick. So I don't think Clemson should get a pass. I think like if Bama lost a game, they would fall down a lot. So I think we just have to keep it fair. So that's my take with that in Clemson. As we go almost to the 2-minute warning, this is our fastest show ever, Connor. So before we jump into that, speaking of the top 4, I want to kind of talk about the top 4. You have Clemson and Bama, which are undefeated, Ohio State, which is undefeated, and Notre Dame, which is undefeated. And Connor, I kind of want to share, I think there's something wrong with the college football playoff now. I think we've gone to, instead of saying we're looking for 4 teams and put the best 4 teams on the field in order to get them to win, I think we've just basically gone to a 4-team BCS now. We might as well go back to the BCS because the 5th team is going to sit out and they're not going to make it. And I just don't think that the system is working. I don't know what the solution is, but what is your sort of take on how this situation is looking with the college football? Is you basically have to be a BCS top 4 winner in order to sort of make it.
I don't think that this year is making it weird. I think that this year is showing that it's been weird really since the beginning of the playoff. If you think about it, just about every year it's felt like you've got the three teams. Oh, that was a real dagger
for
right
days.
Wow. Slants for days. Clemson, Bama, and Ohio State are seemingly always in the playoffs. It's just you just kind of pencil them in, whether or not there's COVID, whether or not there's no COVID. That's just a thing. And so I think that because we have had all these weeks without the Big Ten, and with that we have had less amount of ranked games, I think that we are really experiencing a real issue of fans putting eyeballs on games that they wouldn't have put eyeballs on before, and really kind of asking some hard questions. So, I think that one solution is not to just add more teams, right? I mean, let's be real here. Best team in the country, number 8 on virtually any given week, not going to beat number 1. I mean, they could, not outside the realm of possibility, but you got to admit you kind of got your top 3 and everybody else. So I don't know if adding more teams is the solution so much as, even just going back to I never hated the BCS system. I think it made college football very unique. But I do believe that this year highlights and amplifies just how top-heavy the top of Division I college football is.
I agree. Our viewer Steven gives a really good take. Is that college football playoff is skewed? It's not just the Power 5, but it's just really the SEC, ACC, and Big Ten. Circle back to the first year of the college football playoff when TCU and Baylor missed the playoff so Ohio State could get in. Now Ohio State won that playoff, but I remember that year and thinking that Baylor, I think, should have, instead of being number 5, should have been number 4. But there's something about the way that getting into the playoff works that just feels unbalanced. I agree with you. The BCS system at least brought a lot of drama to every single week. This just feels like we're right back to where we were. So, as that goes, what is your top 4, Connor? And who gets your kiss of death in our last 53 seconds?
Oh, KOD time. Well, the KOD is going to be a little bit... you almost really iced the game
really
right
closed the door.
The KOD is going to have to come during our picks because we do have number 1 versus number 4. But I think, yet again, this week is going to be pretty ho-hum. We're going to have Clemson number 1, Alabama number 2. I think Ohio State, although they haven't looked perfect, are still good enough to be number 3. Notre Dame number 4.
I'm going to go Clemson number 1. I'm not going Clemson 1. I'm going Bama 1, Clemson 2. I'm going to put Notre Dame at 3, which weighs everything on this week of this game. And then I'm going to put Georgia at 4, even though I know that Georgia don't do this to me. No. Oh, man. Did you get it? No, I got you with the 1. There's some drama here in Friend Stream Sports in this game. I'm putting Georgia at number 4, even though I know Georgia likes to choke, and we have a highlight of that on our YouTube channel. If you want to check that out, we did our take on UJ. Yes.
Oh.
Go. Take it back with the juke.
What in the
Danny
world?
Dimes. Oh, is this going to be our first ever full return? Here it comes. Run out the clock. Boom. Oh, walk-off home run by Rutledge, Connor. Slamming the door. How do you feel?
No bueno.
Oh, no bueno. Steven on his. That's a 100-plus yard pick 6. Steven's top 4 is Bama, Clemson, Notre Dame, Ohio State. I'm going Clemson, Bama, Notre Dame, Georgia, Ohio State at 5. I know that we haven't seen a lot of them yet, but they are firing on all cylinders. If they would have started, I would have left them at 3 where everyone else has, but I still need to see more in order to put you into my top 4. But I'm shoving Georgia into number 4. So, as we go with that, it is now time for our picks. So it's time for us to pick Georgia versus Florida. Georgia's a 4-point favorite. Obviously, with Georgia being my top 4, I think Georgia wins, and I think it's really going to create a lot of drama going into the SEC championship game. I think they can take it to Florida. Dan Mullen being out's an impact. Kirby Smart just has like a better system. And I think that Georgia's offense gets it done. Florida's offense is kind of boring. They'd be really boring in maybe 1 or 2 dynamic plays, but it's not the Dan Mullen, like, Dak Prescott offense that everyone thought Florida was going to have. What do you think?
I'm going UGA to win and cover. Cocktail party's an emotional game. And although Dan, a.k.a. Low T Dan, has been trying to show some more machismo, he must be listening to my takes on him. I think Kirby Smart is going to have his Bulldogs ready to play. I think it's a game about attitude, and I think Georgia Bulldogs are going to have more attitude going into this game.
Absolutely. They always come down to fight in Jacksonville. Next we're going to do a big game in the NFL, is the Seattle Seahawks versus the Buffalo Bills. Seahawks are a 2.5-point favorite. I'm going to go homer here and take my Seahawks on the road to beat Buffalo. DK Metcalf is becoming an absolute stud. He is absolutely tearing everything apart. So I feel like Seattle plus that defense they're running out of gas. They have really good leads in the beginning, and we need to tighten it up in the fourth quarter. But I think that this is where we separate the Bills and Seahawks and split them into 2 different categories, and everyone's going to see Seattle as the team in the NFC. What do you think?
I'm going Seahawks as well to win and cover. I think it has more to do with Josh Allen. I think that Russell Wilson's going to outplay Josh Allen, quite frankly, in that, I think he's still been playing pretty well, but, Russell Wilson is on fire, and they're going to let Russ cook. And I think that even though Seahawks are traveling east, I think that Russell Wilson is going to outplay Josh Allen. And I have a gut feeling that Josh Allen is going to look somewhat pedestrian against not a great defense. So I'm going Seahawks.
I agree with that take. Last one we have, to recap, our viewer has picked Georgia and has also picked Seattle. So right along with us, our last take is going to be Clemson versus Notre Dame. Clemson 7 points. Connor, who do you got, Clemson versus Notre Dame? And Steven, who do you have with Clemson versus Notre Dame?
No Trevor Lawrence. Notre Dame can run the ball right at Clemson. And Notre Dame is big, big, big on the perimeter. They've got big players out there on the perimeter that I think are going to give Clemson cornerbacks fits all night. I am picking Notre Dame with the upset win. Strike up the band, touchdown Jesus, all hail for old Notre Dame, whatever their fight song is. I think it's gonna be a shootout though. I think that I'm not even gonna announce Clemson's quarterback's name, but because I will mispronounce it. But I think he's gonna come ready to play. But I think Notre Dame is gonna be wildly efficient on offense, be a very high percentage offense. But I think that they're gonna beat Clemson by more than 7 points. They're going to beat Clemson. Clemson is a 7-point favorite. Notre Dame with the upset win.
Connor, it sounds like you can run through a wall and play like a champion today after that Notre Dame take. So you are all in. I am also all in. Raise up the touchdown Jesus, because Notre Dame is going to beat Clemson. I've said for weeks and weeks with Clemson it was a matter of time. The ACC is just not the power conference it was maybe 10 years ago. There was some more balance in the team, but Dabo Swinney's done such a good job of sucking up all the talent in that area. I really see Notre Dame coming in. I think 7 points of a favorite is also, that just feels really huge for them. I think that the powers that be in Vegas and everyone thinks that Clemson's defense is going to do something, but as you mentioned, Connor, really, you've shared with me a lot. Notre Dame's got that size, they got that talent. They're going to run the ball. It's going to be wild. I think it will be the next thing that sort of breaks. I know our viewer Steven has got that take. As we look at here, we look at Connor's 3 picks. I just want to highlight Connor's 3 picks for the world to see. Danny Dimes threw to me 3 times, thus leading to this Very intense, very fun, 35-19 win. What I want to share with everyone is, as you've heard and you listen to our podcast, listen to our show, our friend Steven came out and hung out with us tonight. If you come and view us on Twitch, let us know you're coming. Drop some comments. We want to interact with you live. If you do, also hit us back on YouTube and leave some comments there. We appreciate our viewers and all their support. We're getting to, next week is 10 episodes, Connor. How do you feel about 10 episodes coming?
I feel like we need merch. That's how I feel about it.
I feel like we do need merch. If you come and watch our show, you'll get merch. I mean, we don't have it yet.
We'll send you something.
We will send you a shirt that says we got merch. So please send us your size. But as that goes, do you have anything you want to say to the people as we sort of close out, Connor?
It's been a blast so far. I can't wait for more weeks, more games here. Notre Dame with the win. You heard it here. Maybe not first, but you heard it here. Notre Dame is beating Clemson. Take the bank.
Notre Dame is going to be beating Clemson. So go out there, find us on Twitch, follow us on Twitch, subscribe on YouTube, go find our podcast. Shout out to those in Denmark listening to us as on our podcast. But as that goes, I'm Rutledge.
And I'm Connor.
And we're Friend Stream Sports. Have a good night.